Welcome back, guys, to the Aeternum News Network, your one-stop shop or listening experience or watching experience, wherever you're tuning into, for New World News. This is episode 7, recording it live on twitch.tv/Davrim. You can always come by on Friday evenings and check out the podcast recording. Join in the chat like a live radio call-in show. So by all means, come by, drop a follow. Every Friday we do this. Usually it's around 6 to 6:30 when we start to do this. But tonight we had a war on stream first, and then we had an invasion. So a little bit later tonight, getting started on the podcast than normally. But that's just how it goes. Lots of things going on in New World to take care of. But we're getting this getting this going here. You can also watch this, obviously, on YouTube, Davrim TV on YouTube, and you can check it out on all podcasting apps. If you're not around a place to watch YouTube or you're not able to get on Twitch, you can also check out Aeternum News Network on all the podcasting apps out there. It's usually released at the beginning part of each week, and we record it on Friday. So this week in New World, we had a dev update video on YouTube on the official New World video. What is it? YouTube. God, words. It's been a long week. And the link for it, if you want to watch the whole thing, is in the description box below. And you can check that out, and you can see what all they talked about. They had a lot of different high-level profile people from the development team, different types of project leads, project or program managers, player experience managers, game managers, the community manager was there. Lots of different people they talked to. I think they're still trying to work the structure out on it, but it was much better and a much easier watch than their previous dev update. This one comes in right just over the 30-minute mark. So it's a pretty quick video to watch. Not too bad. You can do it while you're obviously doing something else and kind of get your direct from the horse's mouth, if you will. But I took down some notes on some things that I want to talk about that they brought up specifically that I think is some really good changes that are, I would say, are probably coming within a week. The winter event was extended until January 25th, and I think that's going to coincide nicely with the January update, or, in my mind, what should be called the February update, since we're going to be playing it predominantly in February. So there was a lot of good information. I think there were some things that they really need to look at and focus on. One of the main game leaders said that, releasing this game, they weren't quite sure what the players wanted versus what their ideas were. I don't know. I thought that was a lot of fluff coming from them. I think the players provided a lot of good feedback in alpha and in beta testing, and a lot of feedback that, quite frankly, was not addressed properly when the game launched, and many things that still haven't been addressed. So, I think that was a little fluff, saying, some of the reasons we were having issues is because we released this game and we weren't quite sure what players were going to want versus what they're not going to want, and I think that was a lot of bullshit, to be honest. And I really think they need to change up the messaging. Look, you guys screwed up, right? Like, you got feedback in alpha, you got feedback in beta, you made some changes, you definitely put the game in a better spot for launch, but it was nowhere ready for launch, but you pushed it out anyways for whatever reason. So don't sit here and tell us you didn't know what we wanted, because trust me, you heard what we wanted. We wanted stability, we wanted performance, and you failed at that. And now we're talking, this game released in the end of September. We're talking October, November, December. We're now finishing up the 4th month of this game, and we're still having the same type of server performance, lag issues, issues in war, and large open world stuff. Still issues that we complained about in alpha and in beta, and you're still having this issue. So telling us that you didn't know what the players wanted, look, we want a stable game that look, you might have balancing issues with your weapons. You might not have a lot of high-end content, but the players can deal with that. A lot of the players dipped out of New World because of the bugs, because of the exploits, and because, frankly, the overall server stability and performance. That's why players are dipping. That's why players have left. It's not because you don't have high-end content. People know, if they're halfway intelligent and watched alpha and beta streams, YouTube videos, or even read the Steam description, this is a PvEVP game. A big focus of the end game of this game is PvP. If you were not prepared for that and came in this thinking it's another World of Warcraft where you can just PvE your heart out, you were probably in for a pretty rude awakening. And you were like, well, I'm leaving because it's a PvP game. Well, you should have read the description to begin with. But that's how it is. The problem is the core people who are still playing and the people who are keeping the game afloat told you months ago, told you before release that we want server stability. So don't give me this bullshit that we didn't know what players wanted. Any player who's playing any game wants stability and they want performance on the software side. We can deal with lack of content, right? I've played Sea of Thieves is now in year 4, and that's another game that I play heavily. Trust me, there's a lack of content in that game. Players love it, and players are still heavily invested in that game every single day. That's fine. Have a stable game, and players will continue to play. Have a game that's not stable, and players will not play. And that's ultimately where we are right now with New World, and it needs to be changed quickly. I mean, I'm looking at people in my company who are lovers of this game, absolutely lovers of this game, and want to see this game do well. And instead of playing every single day, working on, pushing territories, working on, everything else. And of course, they're going to be playing a lot more once the mutations come out and once we get the new Umbral system to work on gear. That's going to obviously bring those players back to playing quite a bit. But quite frankly, the OPR is bullshit. It's laggy and there's a lot of issues. Okay? Wars are sometimes a complete cluster of lag to a point where it's slideshow. Hell, I think it was last night. This is being recorded on 121. I think it was 120. It was a massive war on the Eden server where people from the top guild from Valhalla came to Eden. They transferred over to Eden and they challenged the dominant guild in Eden. And it was huge. It was everywhere on Twitch. Everyone from a whole bunch of different servers are watching it. They wanted to see this fight that everyone was talking about for a long time. The top of Valhalla versus the top of Eden, one-on-one in war. And quite frankly, me watching it, it was nearly unwatchable, regardless of whose stream you watched, because it was a damn slideshow. You didn't know where players were. There were players who were dead that were still standing there with targeting boxes, and when you're swinging at them, it's still showing you swinging at them, but no damage is popping up. It was absolutely a disgrace to see that, and knowing how big that was and how hyped it was. And now on, the grandest stage that New World probably has had, they failed and fell flat on their face horribly. And though there was 2 wars for this in the same night, it was Everfall and Windsward, I believe were the 2 wars that night. The first one was an absolute just slideshow shit show where it was painful to watch. It was unplayable for the players, but it was painful to watch. Like, I really like this game, and watching that, I was like, man, wars suck. And I want to be in wars. I was just in a war tonight that didn't have too much lag, but on a server with Eden, where Eden is a massive server with a lot of people, it's really considered probably one of the healthiest servers as far as population. If that's what you have to look forward to in wars and a healthy population server, who wants to be on a healthy population server? Have a small server where you've got barely anything to do, and at least the main aspect of this game in PvP is actually halfway decent. Go to a server like Eden where there's a lot of competition and a lot of players, and you're sitting here watching a slideshow or playing in a slideshow in order to battle. It's absolutely disgraceful for New World. So that is something they definitely need to take a look at fast. Not later, not down the road, not in February, not in March, not in April. Now. It needs to be addressed now. And they did speak to that a little bit, but I wasn't happy with their response, and we'll get to that in a little bit. So starting with the winter event, I know I've talked a little bit about the winter event again. I had some issues with it, but for their first event, I think it was a pretty good start, right? I thought a lot of players responded well to it. I thought a lot of players had interest in it. And I think the extension was okay. Just because of how many of the resources you need to get to unlock certain things. So I think the extension was smart, and I think the overall event was a good start. What I will tell everyone out there, if you are interested in ever playing Sword and Shield, please do yourself a favor and farm up the faction that's required for the winter event. Please farm up the tokens that are required for the winter event and buy yourself the highest level shield from the winter event. If you craft a 600 level shield with constitution modifiers on it, and you get that legendary shield, sure, your perks might be better. However, you're only going to get a max of 14 constitution on that shield, right? If you get the winter event shield, it's 24. It is 10 additional constitution, and it's only a 520 shield, which as a 520 shield, that sucks. But you're getting 10 more constitution points on a 520 gear score shield than a 600 shield that only has 14 or 15. So you're getting a huge increase to your constitution. Again, they definitely need to look at changing up how the sword and shield work as far as the shield modifier. If you have a shield on, it automatically puts weight on you. So the shield is automatically doing something to your character just by wearing it. But you only get the benefits of its perks and its stats when you pull it out. I think that really needs to be looked at and adjusted. Maybe it's not necessarily the perks that need to be adjusted, but I think the stats for the shield, if you have a sword and a shield equipped, I believe the sword, no matter if it's out or in your inventory, should get at least the stats of the shield. I think that is fine, especially since it's weighing you down. You know, some people are not even running a sword, but still have the shield on because they like the way it looks. That's fine. You still get weighed down with it. You don't have a sword, you're not getting the stats. But the fact that I have to pull out my sword in order to get the shield stats, even though it's weighing me down, I get all the negatives and no positives out of it, right? I get all the negatives, 0 positives, even if I have the shield, because if I switch to my backup weapon, I lose all the perks and all the stats of the shield. So I really think they really need to relook at how the sword and shield work together as far as stats. But if you are ever thinking about, and even if you're not at this point thinking about ever wielding a shield, go pick this shield up, because as long as they never fix the bug, and if they do, it's an event thing. You didn't spend any money on it. You just went out and grabbed a whole bunch of presents or gleamite, and you got it. It's really easy to get. I think it's like one or 5 premium tokens or something like that. It's really cheap to get. Go get it, because if they never fix that, you're automatically going to have a 24 con shield. It does have hatred on it for you tanks out there like myself. It has hatred on it, so that's the perk you want on a shield anyways. Go pick it up. It's well worth the time just for the 24 con. So go get that. In my opinion, if you ever think you're going to use shield, it's a must-have. It's an absolute must-have. All right, so let's dive into this dev update a little bit. So they brought up a few things that are going to be changing in this update that, like I said, I'm anticipating we see on the 25th. I'm going to guess that is when we're going to see it out. Also, make sure you're logging in and getting your freebies out of the store. The freebies are back. I mentioned this in an episode or two ago that the freebies are coming back. They are back now in the store. So if you missed the Winter Festival freebies earlier, go get them now, because they are back in the store and you can get all your freebies. If you miss them this time, well, you're shit out of luck. Don't bitch. Don't bitch on Reddit, because you screwed up. So when this patch drops, we're going to see a few things that are going to be impacting most every player. The first thing is the housing tax change. So not too long ago, a lot of players provided feedback that they felt the taxation on the houses was a little high. The Amazon agreed with that and reduced it to a ridiculous low point, which we've been enjoying for quite some time now. Very low taxes. I mean, I have the largest house in Windsward right now. The property tax is I think 2%, which is the highest it can be, and I'm paying 300 gold every 5 days for my house. Cheap, real cheap. So they're going to be changing it, and the housing tax is going to go up. However, what they did say is it's not going to go as high as it was before. They found a happy medium, is what they called it, between what it was and what it is now. So it's going to be somewhere in there, but your housing taxes will go up. So be prepared for that. When this patch drops, your housing will go up. And I think that's fine. It really does. What that's going to do is obviously the ownership of a territory, specifically Windsward and Everfall on every server. Those are the territories you want. My company controls Windsward on our territory. And our allies control Everfall. So it works out really well for us. And it's really nice. What Windsward and Everfall give you the ability to do, it's right in the center of the map, so everyone goes there. And if you have a good company who's keeping up with the buffs and things, you can have all the crafting stations at tier 5, so all the crafting does there. It's in the center of the map. Trading is going on there. It's just the center, right? It's the center of the world, which means everything happens there, which means the tax revenue that you're getting from there, again, if you have a smart company who's setting up taxation properly, everything's going through there. The company's getting paid for the houses there, which everyone has. They're getting paid for the trade and all the different little bits that they can, skim out of players for taking part in the benefits of being in the city. Seeing housing taxing goes up, what that's going to do is that's obviously going to increase the tax revenue of these cities, Windsward and Everfall. And I'm going to guess, I can only speak to my server, but I'm going to guess on most servers is where the majority of houses are, which means companies are going to now get more money. Okay. And that's good. And why is that good? Well, it might not be good if you have a shitty company leader who, just hoards all the money, or they're not investing it properly into your company. But if you have a good company and a good structure like my company is, where we are sharing the money with allies, we're paying our members who are fighting in the wars and performing well. We are using that money to purchase mods and things like that to roll gear. So our loyal players who are working really hard to improve themselves, who are doing what we need to do in wars, in dungeons, and open PvP, whatever the case may be, we're utilizing that money in order to gear them up. And that's what a good company should be doing. And what it's going to do is, if the taxes are going to go up, everyone's now going to see gigantic ass dollar signs now on Windsward and Everfall, more so than they did before. Because just in a patch, all of a sudden, that weekly revenue that those two cities are bringing in is going to multiply quite a bit based on the population and the number of houses in the cities, which should be the highest on the server. So people are going to be looking at that and wanting a piece of that pie, which means player economy, those companies who own that and have that type of money, players are going to want more money from them for their different trade goods, for their different really god tier best in slot gear that they roll. But it's also going to encourage those PvP hungry people to put in the practice time, put in the effort, put in the time to get new players, train them up in war, and go after these towns more and more and declare more and more wars in order to eventually maybe beat the big boys who are winning in Windsward and Everfall. Because just by taking over the city, even if you take over the city and you don't do dick with it, right? Because everything's already upgraded, but then it downgrades a little bit because the war got lost. Even if you don't go through the time and effort to upgrade that stuff, just in the sheer fact that people are going to continue to trade, continue to craft, and continue to live in those cities, you automatically make a shit ton more if you take those cities than you did before. So that's a huge push for a lot of these companies who want to take those big cities. Now they're going to have an even bigger financial reason to keep pushing. So my company, Aftershocks, who's the other company on our server, Evil Company and Aftershocks, we got to get prepared on the YS server, because we thought it was going to be bad before. We turn around and just about every other day we've got a war with the Marauders. it's going to get worse because they're really going to be drooling to get their hands on Windsward and on Everfall to get that additional money that they want now, but are going to want a lot more. Where in a patch, we're just going to be making a shit ton of money. So batten down the hatches, pull out your swords and shields. We're going to war a lot coming up. I promise you that. They're relentless on our server. The next thing, which I think is going to bring a lot of joy to a lot of players, is the travel cost reduction. Now, I've said this to many people many times. The cost of travel in New World is not bad. The ability to get Azoth is fast. You can get Azoth so quickly. I started today with 8 Azoth to my name, and I logged out with 1,000 Azoth and 10 vials. Just by going out and gathering, just by doing a war, just by doing an invasion, and just by doing 3 Lazarus runs. I went from 8 to 1,000 plus 10 vials. It's not that hard to get Azoth. So I've never really understand people bitching about the travel cost. Furthermore, if you're really bitching about the travel cost, you should probably get a team together and start taking over forts. Because if you take over the forts, you get a reduction in your travel cost, period, end of story. So there's no reason people should have ever complained about Azoth costs unless, 1, they're lazy, or 2, they come from MMOs which have a very quick travel system like flying mounts and ground mounts, which, quite frankly, I came from World of Warcraft, but prior to that, I came from EverQuest, where if you wanted to travel from one side of the world to the other, you're going to have to spend about 4 hours of running because there was no fast travel system when that game came out. So the fact that, 1, I can run from one side of Aeternum to the other in probably less than an hour, especially with the speed increases on the roads, I don't see a problem here. I didn't see a problem. And then if you want to fast travel one place to another, you have the Azoth. I don't see a problem. It's easy enough to get tools with the Azoth perk on it and just go out and gather. If you don't like that, if you don't like to run, you don't like to go gather Azoth by gathering stuff that you can sell, and you don't like that, well, tough tits, okay? Tough tits. Stop playing MMOs. End of the day, stop being lazy, right? Stop being lazy. That's what World of Warcraft has unfortunately turned the most player bases of MMOs. They've turned them into lazy people. Because we want instant gratification. We want to be able to log in, get within 15 minutes to wherever we want to go, kill some shit, get the best loot immediately, and walk away. And that's just laziness. That's just laziness. When I spent 5 years in EverQuest to get my best in slot weapon, and I was okay with that, that's how players were. That's how games were. That's a good grind. 5 years is a long time, but that was a good grind. And I was perfectly fine with it because I was enjoying my time with my friends. I was enjoying time with the community. It was great. Unfortunately, that's not the world we live in anymore. And unfortunately, the loudmouth, lazy people out there who want basically to travel for free everywhere are going to pretty much get their wish. So fast travel points are being added. There's going to be 6 new fast travel points that you're going to have to go most likely discover. They're going to be strategically placed around the world to allow you to get to dungeons quicker. So, Dynasty, Lazarus, Genesis, Shattered Tower, Mountain, whatever that one is. And Depths, there's going to be 6 total added. That way you can quickly get to the dungeons. And the fast travel cost for Azoth is going to be greatly reduced. In fact, I'm pretty sure if I read the patch notes in an episode or two ago properly, it basically reduces it at times to 0 based on control and based on your weight. So huge reductions in travel costs. So if anyone bitches about mounts and that Azoth is still a pain in the ass and I have to pay this to travel and that's bullshit, shut your mouth. Just shut your mouth. You're lazy and you just don't want to admit that you're lazy. Go out, do some gathering, do some invasions, do some PvE for God's sakes. Get a stockpile of Azoth or go out and farm some freaking money and just buy the vials because the vials haven't been expensive forever, right? They haven't been expensive since they added aptitude where you can get a shit ton of vials when you hit one of the aptitude milestones. So freaking just get out there. Don't be lazy. Get your Azoth. Stop your bitching. We're already getting reductions. So just it is what it is at this point. But Azoth reductions are coming in along with 6 additional travel points. A few other major things that they mentioned, and this does impact people, including a close friend of mine. There was an issue where when you switched factions and then switched back, first off, you lose your progression, right? So you lose whatever progression you had with your faction when you switch. So if you ever switch back, you lose all your ranks because you abandoned the faction. Now you're coming back. You have to regrind that. The problem was there was a bug where if you switch factions and then switch back, you cannot progress your faction standing if you switch and switch back. That is being addressed. So if you are one of those unfortunate souls out there who did switch your faction and then decided to come back home, that will be fixed in the next patch, and you will be once again able to rank up your faction. So that's a really good thing, especially since you can buy the tuning orbs and the mutation orbs from your faction vendors for all dungeons coming up in the next patch with the mutations. There's been a lot of issues. They did put out a hotfix that we talked about last week about the the bow action cancel. There's also a void gauntlet action cancel. They're diving into that a little deeper. Obviously the bow, though they fixed part of it, players will do what they do and cheat, and they found a way around it and found a new way to action cancel. They are addressing the void gauntlet and bow action canceling in the next patch. Regardless if there's going to be a way for the players to figure out another way to exploit that, who knows? There probably will be, but they're going to be focusing more and more on those exploits and things like that and trying to get them out of the code as fast as possible. So Void Gauntlet Bow action canceling is going to be addressed in the next patch. And finally, another a big bug that people are trying to bitch about for a long time. And again, don't get me wrong. I think Outpost Rush is a great feature if they can get the lag fixed. I think it's also a great feature that they have a system of PvE and PvP in one place where you can drastically change the outcome of the game based on the PvE that you do. But one thing they failed to do was the NPCs that you can summon, the bear, the phantom, and the brute. They've never been properly balanced. And more so, the brute was just ridiculously overpowered, and it's super cheap and quick to make. So the brute originally had 2 moves. It had a move where it put all this like red fire and then sucked you to it. And then the meatball, or the big ball that rolls and knocks you around. They got rid of the sucking, but they kept the meatball. And the problem with getting rid of the sucking and keeping the meatball is they didn't adjust the actual cooldown time or cast time of the meatball. So now it's basically like a machine gun meatball everywhere. And there's a meatball rolling and meatballs rolling. So it was already bad enough if you had a brute on both sides of the of an outpost, and they would constantly just suck one way, then suck you back, and then suck you again, and then you got meatballs rolling. Now you've got basically ginormous meatballs rolling on both sides, and it's just annoying as shit. So what they're going to be doing is they're going to be increasing the cooldown and reuse rate of the meatball move for the brute. So that means the brute will not be able to machine gun you with meatballs over and over and over again, which is going to be nice. The other thing that I believe I saw in the PTR was that the brute will not target you if you're inside the fort anymore. So if you get inside the fort, the brute is not going to body block the door and just sit there and meatball through the center of the door anymore. So that's good. The other thing they were also doing is greatly increasing the brute cost. Now, I don't know what greatly means. I haven't been on the PTR to necessarily test that. I've just been seeing the notes. But they are going to be increasing the cost it takes of the Azoth vials that it takes to summon a brute. So I think that's going to be good as well, because ultimately right now one person can go out and just collect stuff and keep spawning brutes all over the place, and it's done pretty quickly if you're efficient at it. So increasing the cost there may then bring more people away from the actual battle and focus more on the brute farming, which is absolutely fine, because then the other team can work on points and base defense. And heck, if you've got people taking all three bases and you have an entire army or an entire force going out to farm brutes, you're gonna lose. Like, I don't care if you get brutes out or not, you're going to lose, because it's still a point based and point control based play mode. So it's going to change OPR a little bit. I still think the lag is probably one of the biggest things they need to fix in OPR. But really adjusting this brute, I'm anxious to see how it is, and I'm anxious to see how OPR plays once they get this piece released. So those are kind of the three major bugs that they brought up in the talks. They talked about a lot of other bugs as well, but unfortunately not really giving us any information that they're going to come into the January update. The February update, however, they did give us a sneak peek. The February update will be all bugs and polish. So there's not going to be any new content added in February, according to them. And it's all going to be based around bugs and polish. My opinion on this, that's too long. There are too many bugs and issues in this game right now to wait until February. Like, I get it. You want to put in some new content here in January. I understand that. I get it. But they really need to focus on these hot fixes. They really need to focus on weekly maintenance. They really need to be pushing out stuff quickly and not waiting for majority of big bugs and exploits to be taken care of in February. It's just too long. You're already 4 months in. You've already lost a lot of players because of the poor development and the poor QA. You can't wait another month. You don't have that many months left before enough people are going to be gone, right? The game's not going to go anywhere, but at some point you have to understand, like, how many people leaving because of your poor QA and poor quality control and poor bugs and exploits in this game. How many players have to leave before you realize that it's not new content that you need to put into the game? What is needed into the game is actual polish. What is needed in the game is cleaning up the servers. What is needed in the game is server stability. And waiting another month to put a lot of these major things into place. And we don't even know what the complete list is. We don't know what they're going to be focusing on. They just specifically said there is not going to be content update in February. It's going to be a polish and a bug fix update. You can't wait that long. You really just can't. You can't, because mutations are going to be new. And though people are obviously testing them on the PTR, how many bugs are going to come out of that? How many bugs are going to be coming out of you adjusting the brute stuff in OPR? How many bugs are going to come in during the January update that you're then going to have to address? You really need to get the polish done and then go back and start bringing out the content. I would love to do mutations. Obviously, I'm going to be doing a lot of mutations on stream and with my company and stuff like that. But you really got to work on this polish sooner than later. You can't be sitting here being like, oh yeah, that month is going to be our bug and polish month. We're going to focus on this now. You're past that point. All right. You're 4 months into this game and you've lost enough players. You need to put focus behind the bugs and getting the exploits and getting server stability in place now. It has to be done now. And I can tell you, players are waiting for it now, and they're not going to be waiting forever. So whatever happens in February, I hope it's big. I hope it's amazing, and I hope they address most of the issues, because players are going to see, oh, it's a bug and polish update. They're going to see that, and they're going to expect this game to be like shining like a diamond, and I don't think it's going to be. They also gave us a little bit of insight onto the mergers. So we recently had mergers on servers. Unfortunately, they weren't the mergers that Amazon wanted. They only did a small bit of the merges because they identified a housing bug where if they did all of the merges that they wanted to do, people were going to lose the houses, and that's not good. So it would have been unrecoverable and they would have lost their houses. So that's why they turned off a lot of the character transfers, throttled that, and they also made adjustments and made sure that the mergers didn't go on, because again, that would be a really bad experience if you lost your house. What they said was they've identified the bug and they're working on it, and they will be doing the next set of merges to complete. They're going to call it Merge 1.5. They're going to complete the merges they wanted to do eventually. So again, bringing more of these smaller / medium servers together in order to bring out more of the Eden style, large, healthy communities where there's a lot of people and a lot of stuff to do. So that is coming soon, TM. And then after that round is done and everything's stable and people have a chance to check out the world, they are going to issue a second round of server transfer tokens. I'm a little nervous about this if they're going to issue them for free. I still think people are going to jump on this and their second set of merges might get hurt a little bit because of that. If you merge people together and hope for a nice, enjoyable, healthy server, and then you give them the opportunity to leave again, you're just probably going to recreate issues again. So my suggestion, and what I would do if I was Amazon, I would get through the second set of merges, and then I would open character transfers up again, but tokens cost $50 a piece, and you have to stay on that server for 6 months. Yeah, $50 is a lot, understandably, but it's a revenue generator for Amazon, and it's then a deterrent for people who are just wanting to bounce for free. And if it wasn't free, they're not going to bounce. So put a high price tag on it, like $50 to transfer. And if you transfer, you're locked into that new server for 6 months. Regardless of what happens with that server, you're locked into it for 6 months. Put a high price tag on it and put a heavy-handed punishment on it if for some reason you transfer and it doesn't work out. All right? Really make people think about that transfer after you've already pushed through the merges. That's my opinion. I don't think they're going to do it that way, but that's my opinion. So for those of you on servers that got merged or haven't been merged yet, don't worry, they're coming. They just have to finish fixing this bug. They also went into some detail, not too much detail. I think everyone kind of understands the Umbral system now, but I'm going to go over it in case you don't. So when the January update comes out, the gear score will be able to go up to 625, right? 625 will be the new gear score level. Now, your gear score, your gear score cap right now is 590. Which then allows you to get the 600 gear, from a random drop chance. Obviously, you can craft 600 gear if you're really lucky. But in this new system, you're going to have to do the mutations in order to get something called Umbral shards. And these Umbral shards, a certain amount of them will allow you to upgrade a piece of gear starting at 595 gear, I believe. It might even go as low as 590 gear. But it'll allow you to upgrade that gear to 591 or 601 or 602 or 615 or whatever it is, depending on how many shards you want to pump into that particular gear. Here is the thing about that. That is how you're going to raise your gear score, your watermark, if you will, to 625. The only way to raise your watermark to that is through the Umbral system, right? You can always craft the 600 level gear or whatever you're crafting, but in order to get your gear score to go 601, 602 for those different slots, you are going to have to use the Umbral system. I really like the fact that they are allowing you to keep your old gear and upgrade the old gear. So I, for example, had one of my company members make me a pretty damn good sword today, and actually made 3 decent swords, 1 legendary, but it was a little off on the perks. But one really good one that was like 595. So I'm going to use Umbral crystals or shards to upgrade that one and push my sword watermark up and push the awesomeness of that particular weapon up. Because they brought up in the dev thing, you might be trying to get that perfect best in slot legendary with the tits roll of the 3 perks plus the really, really good stats. That's very hard to do. and takes a lot of time and either a lot of gold or a lot of crafting in order to get that. And, you may be crafting for months. You may be crafting for weeks. You may be putting millions of gold into the trading post to get these things. And at the end of the day, sometimes just getting a cheaper purple with only 2 perks is going to serve you better for now until eventually you find that legendary. But the nice part about this system is even the purples get to be upgraded. So you still only get to have your 2 perks on a purple that you upgrade to 601, 602, all the way up to 625. But if it's 2 really awesome perks, at least you've still got that piece of gear, and you're not locked out. Yeah, 3 perks is better, but if you've got 2 best in slot perks, that's still pretty damn good, and you should probably be okay with it. So I like the fact of that. And again, the Umbral crystals or the Umbral shards are going to be coming from the mutators. And as you level up your mutators to higher and higher levels, 10 max levels, the more shards you get out of the run. So definitely something, as we're probably approaching the last week of this update, definitely something to look into, using everything in your power to get your gear score up. I think I have one more day and all of my armor pieces and my sword will be 590. I've got a lot of work to do on my Void Gauntlet and a couple of my weapons. My shield will be 590, and then a couple of my rings and amulets and stuff. My jewelry is awful. It's just dog shit. Now I have good pieces in the slot, which won't downgrade with the new patch. They will keep their current item level and stuff like that, because again, I acquired them prior to that. They're grandfathered in. So yeah, right now you should be looking for the best possible items you can get for all your slots that are the highest gear score possible. So that way when the patch drops, the next 600 gear item you get and your earring is only 501, it's not going to downgrade because of that. So definitely work on getting your gear score up as high as possible if you're not already maxed. I know some people are at 590 with most everything. Use that gypsum, farm that gypsum every single day. Don't forget your topaz gypsum potions, utilizing those each day to farm that stuff up. They do work in dungeons, so if you're doing Lazarus or you're doing Genesis, or maybe even Dynasty, make sure you've got one of those topaz potion elixirs. If you're out there farming the armorer's hat or whatever that really expensive armorer's mod is out there, again, you're fighting mobs that could give you gypsum if you've got that potion running. So make sure you run that potion so you have the highest chance to get gypsum, and thus cashing in and getting your higher and higher gear score before this patch comes out. Because once the patch comes out, whatever gear you get after that is not going to be grandfathered, and it's going to downgrade to the, I believe it's the midway point between the gear score on the item and your actual gear score for that slot. And the only way to fix that is to get your watermark up, and yeah. So there you go. Now, one of the big things that I've complained about, we started the episode talking about it, is the lag, the weapon swap issues, really the issues that are really impacting all players in some of the most important features of this game. War, Outpost Rush, open world PvP. I mean, weapon swap bug happens in dungeons. So there you go. I died today in Lazarus because my damn weapon, when it swapped to pull my shield out. So there you go. It happens everywhere. So they brought up a new team that they've established at Amazon Gaming Studio, and it's the Latency Strike Force team. And the priority and focus of this team is to investigate and resolve desync, latency, and weapon swap issues. So this, I think, is something good, and I'm glad that I heard that they're actually putting a strike force into place, a focused team that their job is to be focused solely on what, in my opinion, and a lot of players' opinions, is the biggest issues of the game. Latency, desync, weapon swap. Those are the biggest things that are causing people issues. The lag everywhere. And these are not simple fixes. They're obviously, they explain that, the desync and the latency issues, there's a whole bunch of small issues that are compounding into the big issues. So they've got to research all these small issues and kind of fix them one at a time to get the bigger issue resolved. What they did say was, in the January update, we are going to see some adjustments to these, so things should get a little bit better. It won't be perfect, it won't be fixed, as they said, but it will be a little bit better, including weapon swap. So the weapon swap issue they mentioned is much bigger and deeper than a lot of players realize, but they know how to fix it completely. It's just a matter of time and resources to get that fixed. Obviously, you know, if they fix it a little bit to at least make it slightly better, and they work on the lag, the latency, the desync, I think a lot of players are going to be okay. Look, if the weapon doesn't swap 100% of the time perfectly, so be it, but it's got to swap most of the time at least decently, right? We can't be sitting here trying to swap weapons and it never ever swapping and we die or have bad plays because of it. It's just a poor player experience in a game that's based around quick action and response and all that stuff. But also, latency and desync are very important issues as well, and will obviously help with the weapon swap. But they are going to be releasing in the January update a small fix or change to weapon swapping, which, as they said, should help the problem in general, and they should be able to help that situation and make the weapon swap less of an issue. They said it's still going to be an issue. It's still going to be an issue for some time until they can get the resources and time to get desync, latency fixed, and then they can put focus on the really deep issue that's causing weapon swap to help the cancellations and stuff like that and make sure things are queuing up properly. But they are going to put in a little fix. I don't think how much of the weapon swap is going to be fixed in January. They did say they're going to put a little bit more into February. So we should be seeing the weapon swap getting better. We should be seeing desync getting better and latency getting better. Again, just because we have a single team that their only job now in Amazon Gaming Studio is desync, latency, and weapon swap. Researching it and resolving it. So that in my mind was really good. I think they waited way too long to get this team in place, knowing how launch went, knowing how these big wars are being hyped up on Twitch or on YouTube and looking like garbage. No one who is a content creator, including myself for New World, could take these basically slideshows and put them up on YouTube and get any sort of interesting views or comments out of it, right? No one's going to watch that and say it's entertaining. No one's going to watch it and say it's good. No one's going to watch it and want to play in a war, right? That Eden Valhalla war was just absolutely dog trash. And no one's going to look at that and say, hey, that looks like fun to be in. The players are standing still. I can't see what I'm shooting. I can't see anything. I just see numbers whenever I get lucky and hit something. It's absolutely crappy. So the fact that Amazon is putting focus behind that and an entire team is absolutely awesome. I just think it's too late. They should have done this earlier. I'm glad they're doing it, but it should have been done a long ass time ago. And we're just having to suffer through it right now. So hopefully we'll see a little bit of change in the weapon swap bug in this next patch, a little bit change in desync and latency in this next patch, but hopefully we'll see a lot of this stuff getting hammered out in February. Again, in my opinion, it's way too late, but at least we have an idea of it's coming. At least we have a roadmap. At least we might be able to see a little glimmer of light at the end of the long tunnel, right? The other thing that they brought up was the Blunderbuss. So obviously, along with, all the bugs that we want them to fix, the mutators and the new content, we know there's going to be a new area eventually. We also know that they've been working on other weapons like 2 daggers and the Blunderbuss and a great sword. There's a whole bunch of new weapons that they've got on their table that they're going to eventually roll out. The Blunderbuss is the next one. The Blunderbuss will be some sort of ranged combat item. It was in, I believe, one of the alphas. I don't remember. I think it's scaled off of strength or dex. I don't remember. You can let me know in the comments if you know that. But I think they're going to be really looking at that. Currently, right now, the Blunderbuss is only available to the Amazon Gaming Studios team who is working on it and testing it there. I don't anticipate we're seeing it anytime soon. We're definitely not seeing it January. They said they're not adding anything new, including the Blunderbuss in February. So at the earliest, the Blunderbuss would be introduced in March at the earliest. So that would be the end of March. So we're talking 2 full months from now, basically. Wait, 1, 2. Yeah, 2 full months from now before potentially we could see the Blunderbuss. Obviously, the Blunderbuss will hit the PTR before it's ever going to hit the game. So we know it's going to be coming once it hits the PTR. I'm really interested in this weapon. Excuse me. Because of the historical purpose of this weapon. The Blunderbuss was basically like if you're not familiar what it is, it was basically like the first shotgun, right? It's a relatively short barreled rifle, with usually a slightly, now in some video games and TV shows, it's an extremely fluted end, but and just a slightly fluted end, a larger round, and it shot basically pellets. It shot lead balls. You put a whole bunch of, lead balls in there, the flint, and it shot, right? And the objective of this weapon was in multiple ways. It was really a melee weapon, right? It was not a weapon you fired at range. Why? Because there's a whole bunch of pellets, and they would just go out in all directions, right? So the idea of a Blunderbuss was close range. Someone's charging, like a couple people are charging at you. You shoot the Blunderbuss at a closer range, and you're spraying, grape shot at several different people. So I really feel like this is going to be a medium, a short to really short, medium range, right? Really almost point blank style shooting, I feel, off the Blunderbuss. I think they can come up with a whole bunch of cool ideas. I think the Blunderbuss has definitely opportunities to have some sort of fire shot, some sort of rending shot, maybe even some sort of poison shot, right? You could dip the balls in things. You could put things like nails or whatever in there to kind of rend and bleed the target. I feel like that stuff's going to be in there. I think they could look at more trap options like the rifle has. Or the musket has. I think they could have some cool things in there mixed in. Maybe an ability that has like a dagger or a melee thing where you pull out and stab someone with it. I don't know. I think there's going to be a lot of stuff in there. But what I think would be really cool, and what they don't currently have right now, is I think it would be cool if the Blunderbuss scaled off of Khan. Here's why. Melee right now, predominantly axe hammer. Right? Axe hammer. Strength. They want 300 strength for the grip. Done. Okay? Then we've got kind of the duelist style weapons like the spear. Okay. And the rapier. Okay. Rapier is really a utility weapon right now, but that's how it is. Then you've got your ranged weapons. You've got the musket and you got the bow. Right? You also have the hatchet in there, right? But that's kind of mixed with probably the spear, most likely, or whatever. Really, the axe or the hatchet is another utility weapon. Most people don't use it to fight with. They're using it to stay alive with the Undying perk. And then you've got your mages. You got your Void Gauntlet, Ice Gauntlet, Fire Staff. And you got your healer with the Life Staff. I think they should really make a change to how 2 things scale. I think they should make a change to how Sword and Shield scales. I think that should scale off of Constitution with a secondary scale off of Strength instead of currently Strength and Dex. I think Sword and Shield should scale off Con, and I think Blunderbuss should scale off Con. So then you've got a completely new meta that you could establish with tanks, right? Right now, I'm trying to get into wars, right? And I play tank. And really, in general, you don't necessarily want nor need tanks in wars, either defensive or offensive. They don't put out a lot of damage, and all that they can really do is do a little disruption, do a little support, depending on their build. I'm currently running right now, and there will be a guide eventually out on my build with some war footage and stuff like that. Void Gauntlet, Sword, and Shield. And I'm not running 300 con, I'm running like 200 con, and I'm running like 250 int. I can put out some damage. I'm in heavy armor, so it's hard for me to die. But think about if you could get a tank that has 300 con, so very tough to kill, can put out a decent amount of damage with the sword, and has this freaking blunderbuss that if a group of people clump up near the point, they can shoot it, knock them back, rend them, bleed them, whatever it may be. Tanks start to become useful then, right? Are you going to be running, 15 tanks in a war? No. But having something that gives some sort of damage to tanks where they're actually not just useless pieces of garbage that you put on a point and like, hey, just sit there, right? Just sit there and don't die. That's your job. Sit there and don't die. Like, if you ever watch my stream and I'm doing invasions for me, though they're fun, they're still pretty boring. Why? Because I just sit there and I wait for a damn bear. And then I taunt. And that's all I do. I provide leadership to everyone because leadership is the best tank buff. If you're running defensive formation as a tank, you're wrong. You can hit me up on Twitter. You can email the show. You can hit me up on the Twitch chat, whatever you do. If you run defensive formation as a tank, you're absolutely 100% wrong. You're just wrong. That perk is pointless and useless in every single piece of content in this game. It is a group buff of damage reduction, which requires your group to group up and clump. What do you not want to do in New World? You don't want to group up and you don't want to clump. Run leadership. Give your DPS 10% additional damage. Way better. Way better. Way better. Way better. Because you're not doing damage. And you don't want your people to clump. So why the hell are you running something that makes them clump? Just don't do it. Just don't do it. So I think having the blunderbuss running off of Constitution and moving sword and shield to Constitution strength, or maybe not primary Constitution, maybe primary strength, secondary Constitution, I think that would be kind of cool. But just give the tanks something to do so they're viable and more than just dungeons, right? You're still not going to have a tank running away from point, chasing someone down, right? You're going to be waiting for their team to come at the point, and when they start to group up to try to take the point, you just blow their heads off with the blunderbuss, knock them back, rend them, bleed them, burn them, whatever the blunderbuss abilities are going to be. But just it would be a really cool thing to scale sword and shield blunderbuss off con and build something, a new type of melee that is not just axe hammer, right? Axe hammer, it's really simple. You've got Path of Destiny, you've got, Shockwave into little smashy hammer, into War Axe, Maelstrom, Gravity Well, Reap, whatever it is. That's what's out there. That's what's out there. Give us some other melee options in there that are not just dueling melee options, right? Like, for example, the spear. The spear has its place in dungeons. The spear has its place in duels. The spear has its place in future arenas. The spear has its place in like 1v or 2v2s, 3v3, 4v4s. Absolutely, the spear has its place. But it's a single damage target thing. And in a war, that's not what you want. Right? So let's start focusing on something that really, to be honest, only has one place to play right now, which is PvE dungeons, and that's the tank. Let's give the sword, scale it off of con, either primary or secondary, to bump up the damage of the sword, and then give the blunderbuss to Constitution. Secondary scales off, I don't know, Dex or something. I don't really care. It doesn't even need a secondary. It can scale like the bow and just scale off Constitution. It's still something that anyone could run, right? If it's a crowd control style weapon, like the hammer, for example, no one's out there just swinging a hammer willy-nilly, even at 300 con. Why? Because it's slow as shit. If the blunderbuss is more of a crowd control style support weapon like the hammer is, it has a slow reload time. It just punishes people grouping up and can put debuffs out there. Give it to the damn tanks. Let us tanks have a moment of glory in some PvP content where we can keep our Constitution up and be a rock solid point man for our team and be able to still put out some damage and support our team. That's all I'm asking. That's all I'm asking. Make it Constitution and change the sword over. That's what they could do to make that good. Just my opinion. I haven't seen the blunderbuss. I didn't play the Blunderbuss back when it was in alpha or whatever, so I don't know what they're going to do, but please give us some love. Make my sword and shield not a joke anymore. Give me something. Give me something, New World. But again, that was kind of what the dev update was. I thought it was nice and concise. I thought they brought up a lot of cool things. I thought they gave us a lot of good information in a short amount of time. If you are interested in watching the entire thing, again, the link will be in the description, and you can go to the link and watch the entire. It's just over 30 minutes, so really quick watch. Aside from that, guys, that's all I have for this week on the Aeternum News Network. I do want to let everyone know there will not be Twitch streams next week starting Tuesday, and there won't be one Tuesday, there won't be one Friday, there won't be one Saturday, there will be one Sunday. I am traveling next week, so if you want to come to the Eternal News Network live recording, it will be most likely 2 weeks from 2 weeks from today, because I will be traveling to support one of my good friends who is graduating from a Marine Academy. So I'll be traveling to see them all next week. So there will not be a live recording of the Aeternum News Network. I may record a version at my hotel room and put it up on YouTube, put it up on the podcasting apps. But as far as the Aeternum News Network live on Twitch, we will not have one for 2 weeks because of my travel schedule. But please take that time to check out the previous episodes, the war videos. Drop a like, drop a follow, and come over to Twitch and drop a follow there so you know when I go live there. But guys, thank you very much for listening. If you would like to support the show, you can go over to patreon.com/DavrimTV. You can also see all the rewards that you can get over there and the different tiers. That support goes directly to helping me produce this content and this show. So greatly appreciate that. If you come over to Twitch and drop a sub or any bits, that does go directly to the charity. So only patreon.com stuff will actually come directly to me to support the show. So multiple ways for you to support the show if you would like to, but it is ultimately free content for you to consume. So I hope you drop the likes and subscribes and all that kind of fun stuff so you can come back. Also, drop a review. If your podcasting app that you have has a review, please drop a review. Leave me a comment. I do try to read those. You can also email the show. Find me on Twitter, DavrimTV on Twitter, and all that fun stuff. But guys, take care of yourselves and each other, and I'll see you next time on the Aeternum News Network.